So, you know, we talk a lot about STEM, STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math, or sometimes there's also STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And very often, what we talk about is kind of the lack of both women or girls and minorities within, high school and so forth, taking an interest in, say, STEM subjects, so that they can be, maybe find a career or vocation in STEM-related vocations. So we talk about girls and minorities and a lot of the outreach programs that are available for them, which is great. I mean, but there is a population. Several populations actually, that also miss out on the opportunities for STEM and STEM education and STEM vocations. And these are deaf and hard of hearing as well as blind students. But there is work being done to introduce those populations into STEM education as well. So there is at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, also known as UAH, they have a program in conjunction with the Alabama Institute for the Deaf that is for hard of hearing students in grades 10 through 12. And these students recently spent a summer at what UAH called Droids and Drones. And what this was simply an educational outreach for deaf and hard of hearing students to come into the UAH and also Rochester Institute of Technology and Alabama Institute for the Blind and Deaf was also involved in this. And basically the program was just to use the idea of hands-on work with 3D printers and making a drone and flying a drone. They would learn about robotics and UAVs and all this very hands-on. They would also take some educational trips, to science institutes and that sort of stuff, so they could learn more and get really hands-on knowledge about this, and maybe generate some excitement in them about a career in science, technology, engineering, and math programs. And also, this could help influence what programs they might take when they go to college. So it's a very interesting outreach program. UAH says they believe this is the only one of its kind in the United States that is specifically deaf and hard of hearing oriented. And I want to give a little bit of a plug here, honestly, because as I was researching this, I was talking to people at UAH and I talked to people at the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind, AIDB is what it's called. And I want to put in a little plug for them because they're doing something that I think is really important and really interesting. So AIDB and the National Technical Institute for the Deaf have partnered to create what they call the NTID Southeast Regional STEM Center. And the goal for this is specifically to improve access for deaf and hard of hearing students to STEM topics and STEM education. And they do this where it makes sense by providing educators throughout the Southeast who work with deaf and hard of hearing students. They give them the training and best practices for how to teach technical subjects to deaf and hard of hearing students. And this is important because very often the people who are experts in these technical topics don't have expertise in how to interpret it and present it to deaf and hard of hearing students. So they need to be taught, the educators need to be taught how to do this.
It's a special population. So
it's a special population. And very often what you have is not all deaf and hard of hearing students go to something like the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and the Blind or Gallaudet or whatever. They go to mainstream schools.
Sure, of course.
And those teachers, they may have interpreters to help, teach standard subjects, but even if you invite somebody from industry to come in and talk to your students about STEM, they don't necessarily know how to communicate to deaf and hard of hearing students. So that's what this program is all about. It's really to train to trainer, essentially, in order to reach deaf and hard of hearing students. So if you're interested in this, maybe you have maybe you're deaf and hard of hearing, or you have a son or a friend or a daughter who's deaf and hard of hearing, contact the Alabama Institute for the Blind and Deaf and Blind, because they've got a very interesting program going on there.
Yeah, they do, and they're doing good work there, of course. I mean, anything that involves STEM or STEAM education is something that we're really actively interested in, and I know that this program is one that really is important.
And you can also contact the UAH, obviously, University of Alabama at Huntsville, and they are talking to them. They are also looking at rolling out a program for the blind as well. This one was for deaf and hard of hearing. I got into a pretty good discussion with them about blind topics, and that is actually where they're going to. I got another minute here. Something that was really interesting, I did not realize that there were blind programmers. I mean, I guess I didn't think about it. I mean, there's no reason why somebody who's blind can't be a programmer. But having done a lot of programming myself, I can tell you that not having that visual thing in front of you poses some unique challenges, which blind people have overcome. And there's a lot of tools out there for blind programmers. One of the programmers for Google,
is blind.
Maybe more than one, but I happen to read his blog, is blind. Just fascinating stuff. I mean, there are a lot of programs out there. It's kind of the importance of bringing this population into STEM vocation.
And I mean, the purpose of technology is to help people interact more efficiently with each other and with the world. And I mean, hey, if you have a disability, that, if you're blind or if you're hard of hearing, some of these technologies are really important to help you interact with the world.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.